The 4-day walkout by the Korean Railway Workers Union is slated to end at 9 a.m. today, with all passenger trains to resume operations by this evening.
네, 총파업에 들어갔던 전국 철도 노동조합 철도노조가 오늘 오전 9시를 기해 업무에 복귀합니다. 이에 따라 고속철도 KTX 및 일반 열차가 오늘 밤까지 단계적으로 운행을 재개할 것으로 보입니다. Alright, so for the past 4 days over the weekend and a little bit before that, the union went on strike.
Yeah, there's been a strike with the operation rate of the high-speed KTX trains being just 76.5% in operation. The rate of subways in the capital region of Seoul was running at 83.8%. And cargo freight, they were running at 47.4%. So if you were to notice anything, it might have been more on the cargo side of things rather than passengers.
And the union had been demanding better working conditions, and also they're asking for the KTX, I should say, bullet train service to go to Suso in Seoul. So those were some of the demands.
Yeah, of course, the SRT that you mentioned, that already goes to Seoul's Suso station. It's a different company than the KTX. So they're saying that they want their trains to go there as well.
They want access to that. Exactly. And this hasn't actually been resolved. However, the first round of strikes will end at 9 today, which is not too
Very shortly.
far off from now. Yep, exactly. And we may be hearing of another round of strikes later on. We're not sure when, but so far, of course, this seems to have come to an end. Let's have a look at the main expressions. The first one is walkout.
Yeah, walkout is typically when you talk about a strike, when you walk out, it means that you're not working or you're not where you're supposed to be. So you can stage a walkout is often how we'll call it, or you can just walk out as a verb as well.
Yeah.
And I remember we actually did this in high school. I think like
You
yeah.
walked out?
Our students at our school, we staged a walkout. And I think it was, I believe it was somewhat encouraged by some of the teachers because they wanted the students to learn about the power of, all being a student together as a union.
It's like a mock walkout. then.
Yeah, exactly. It was somewhat encouraged, like as if they're kind of hinting, if you guys were ever to do something like that and make certain demands from the school or teachers or principal, then, you'd be surprised how much power that you carry.
신선하네요. 캐나다에서는 그 선생님이 어느 학교 때예요? 고등학교 때, 중학교 때?
In high school.
고등학교 때
Yeah.
학교에서 선생님이 권장해가지고 자, 학생 여러분 한번 이 파업이라고 치고 나가보세요. 수업 거부하고 나가보세요. 이렇게 했다는 거죠?
It was somewhat like, it was kind of
진짜?
hinting. Like he also did mention, but understand that you could get in a little bit of trouble as well. But he was kind of weighing, but if you really want something that much, then is it worth walking out for? If you want something that much, then, you have to weigh it was kind of like a social studies
Sure.
experiment that they wanted the students to understand.
책에서 뭐 글로만 읽는 게 아니라
Yeah.
너희도 직접 한번 해봐라. 그 대신에 여기 repercussion은 있을 수 있다. 뭐 이런 정도의 또 책임감도 가지고 어떤 명분으로 이렇게 워크아웃을 하는지 잘 생각하고 해봐라. 이렇게
Yeah.
하셨군요. 와, 깨어있는 선생님이셨네요. 자, 워크아웃이라는 게 한 단어인데요. 파업이란 뜻입니다. 우리 근데 오프닝에서요, 선생님. workout라는 단어가 있었어요. 약간 비슷하죠? 발음이.
It can sound similar. Yeah, work and walk. Yeah, work out, walk out.
이거 어려워하시는 분들 많으시거든요. 우리 운동할 때는 workout, W-O-R-K-O-U-T. 근데 여기서 말하는 파업은 W-A-L-K-O-U-T. walkout, 잠깐만요. 그러니까 운동하는 것은 workout, 그리고 이제 파업하는 것은 walkout.
Yeah.
영국 발음이 조금 더 어렵네요. 제가 보니까.
Yeah, I think so.
캐나다 발음과 북미 발음은 조금 더 구별하기 쉬운 것 같습니다. 자, 그 다음 표현으로는요. be slated to do something인데요.
Yeah, when you're slated to do something, you're scheduled to do something. It's on your agenda coming up. And one other thing that I'll quickly mention that's somewhat related is if you ever see people making a movie, just before a scene, they'll have that big clapper and then they go, scene one, whatever, and they go clap, and then it's to, synchronize the sound with the visual.
Take 59.
Exactly. Yeah. But we call that a slate or a slate board. And there's information on there that says, okay, this is scene 59, as you mentioned, or take whatever. So they can find that later on. So it's almost as if they're telling the schedule of what this is coming up on that. So they're slating it, they're scheduling, this is what this is coming up.
영화 이렇게 장면 하나하나 촬영할 때 이렇게 감독이 탁 이렇게 치는 거, 요게 slate인 거죠. 그런데 be slated to do something이라는 표현은요, 뭐뭐 할 예정이다. 이렇게 보시면 되겠습니다. 다시 한번 제가 영어로 읽어보겠습니다. The 4-day walkout by the Korean Railway Workers Union is slated to end at 9 a.m. today, with all passenger trains to resume operations by this evening.
The number of delinquent borrowers who were unable to repay their student loans last year reached the highest level in 10 years, according to data compiled by Korea's National Tax Service.
지난해 학자금 대출을 제때 상환하지 못한 연체자 수가 10년 만에 최고치를 기록한 것으로 국세청 집계 자료에 나타났습니다. Okay. A lot of people were in debt last year. Let's have a look.
Yeah, unpaid school loans stood at 55.2 billion won last year, and that is up 2.7-fold from just over 20 billion in 2018. So more than twice as much it's gone up in the last 5 years.
지난 5년간의 액수로만 봤을 때는 2배 이상의 그런 학자금 대출 갚지 못한 그 액수라고 볼 수 있겠고요. 그 다음에 the number of people로 봤을 때는 지난 10년 동안 가장 높은 수치를 기록했다고 합니다. 작년에. So why don't we look at the expressions here? The first one is delinquent borrowers.
Yeah, a delinquent is someone that doesn't do what they are supposed to do or what they said they're going to do. And in most cases, we do talk about loans or borrowers in this case. So you're someone that's borrowed money, you're supposed to pay that back by a certain time, and when you don't, then you are now a delinquent. The other place that we'll hear the word delinquent quite often is a juvenile delinquent, as an example. And in that case, you're talking about someone who's not an adult yet that has not been a good juvenile. So they've been making mistakes or doing things that are not good for society. You don't want to treat them or try them like an adult because they're still younger. But it's someone that, maybe has gone to youth prison or things like that, a juvenile delinquent. They're not acting responsibly.
They were underage, but they broke some sort of law.
Yeah. So you don't want to charge them to the same level as an adult. But.
Exactly. A delinquent borrower가 여기서는 이제 체납자, 채무 불이행자가 되겠습니다. 그 다음에 학자금 대출이라는 표현도 볼게요. Student loans.
Yeah, student loan is when you're borrowing money as a student to pay for education. And in most cases, I believe it's university and beyond. I don't think I've ever heard of loans for high school and lower. I guess it's possible if it's a very expensive private school of some sort. But I think typically we're talking about university, and it's the student that's actually paying it back, not the parent. And I think in most cases, they have different rules in terms of the interest. Like I think in most cases, you're not actually paying the interest until either you graduate or you start actually making money at a job.
Exactly. You first of all pay the principal, and then later on, once you earn money, then you can start paying the interest. 그래요. 여기서 이제 principal하고 interest는 원금과 이자가 되겠고요. Student loans가 학자금 대출입니다.
Yeah, so as an example sentence, after graduating from Harvard, she had a very prestigious degree, but also a lot of student loans.
다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The number of delinquent borrowers who were unable to repay their student loans last year reached the highest level in 10 years, according to data compiled by Korea's National Tax Service.
Dengue fever has claimed over 800 lives in Bangladesh so far this year, the highest annual death toll from the mosquito-borne disease, according to the country's health ministry, with the fatality count surging to 804 from 281 last year.
네, 방글라데시 보건당국은 올해 자국에서 댕기열로 지금까지 800명 이상이 사망해 모기 매개 질병에 따른 연간 사망자 수로는 최고치를 기록했다고 밝혔습니다. 작년 댕기열 사망자 수는 281명이었는데 비해 올해는 804명으로 급증한 것으로 알려졌습니다. Right, let's talk about dengue fever then. A lot of people have lost their lives from it.
Yeah, 804. And considering it was only 281 last year, I mean, that's like, what, triple, I guess? I mean, it has been going up like crazy. And of course, a lot of this is because of mosquito problems. And I guess they're getting an unusual amount of rainfall earlier in the year, which has kind of helped to spawn more mosquitoes in the area, which has kind of led to this.
I see. So the weather has a lot to do with it. 자, 그러면 표현을 좀 보도록 하겠습니다. Dengue fever has claimed lives. Let's look at that.
Yeah, when you claim something, you're kind of taking responsibility for it, or you're claiming something to be yours. I think of when the Europeans first were exploring North America. Christopher Columbus, as an example, claimed a lot of the land for Spain. He was actually Italian, but he was, sponsored by Spain at the time. Right. So when he went over, you see scenes like that, especially in movies and cartoons, where they plant a flag there and you say, okay, we claim this to be our land. Or, the United States put a flag on the moon and said, hey, we claim the moon to be ours. But you're making a claim. You're saying, this is mine. It could be a request in some cases as well. I'm entering a claim maybe to an insurance company that, I want to receive something. But usually it's some sort of a claim that you're saying that this is yours.
Yeah, at the airport, you might hear, do you have anything to claim? Or is it declare? Which one is it? Or is it both?
It can be both. Yeah.
Okay, claim and declare.
Yeah, it's sort of like, and it can be sort of like a statement that you're making, right? Do you have a statement that you want to make to actually say that you have something? So in the same sort of way, it's as if the dengue fever is claiming the lives. It's the one that's taking these lives away. So it's taking what it feels it is in a certain way, and so that's responsible for these lives.
클레임을 단독으로 썼을 때는 이제 내 것이라고 이제 밝히는 거죠. 내 것이야. 이건 내가 차지해. 그래서 claim land, claim property 그런 식으로 쓰기도 하지만 여기서 claim lives는 그냥 하나로 묶어서 보시면 되는데요. 생명을 앗아간다라는 뜻입니다. 그래서 앞에다가 질병이라든지 아니면은 뭐 태풍, 허리케인 등등등 그런 것들 원인을 먼저 쓰고요. This claimed how many lives 이렇게 쓰는 거죠. 자, 여기서도 마찬가지로 dengue fever has claimed over 800 lives. 800명 이상이 이 댕기열로 인해서 사망했다. 올해만 그렇습니다. 자, 그 다음에 나오는 표현인데요. The count. Let's look at that. The fatality count.
Yeah, the count is the number of whatever it might be that you're counting for a specific purpose. So in this case, the count is for the number of people who have died because of the dengue fever.
Yeah.
But it could be any number of things. Sometimes we'll take like a head count if we want to know, does anybody else want coffee? And let's take a count. Let's take a head count. How many people want coffee? Raise your hand, right? So now we're going to count how many people want coffee. tally.
머릿수를 세보겠다. Let's take a head count. 이렇게요. count가 여기서는 그러니까 숫자인데 fatality count입니다. 그러니까 마찬가지로 사망자 수가 되겠죠. It's the biggest fatality count for a year that we've seen in a long time. And, this number, it surged or it soared from around 280 to over 800.
Yeah, significant increase.
Yes.
And so with the count as an example sentence, you could say the death count in Morocco continued to go up. Of course, they had an earthquake there not too long ago.
Okay, here it is one more time. Dengue fever has claimed over 800 lives in Bangladesh so far this year, the highest annual death toll from the mosquito-borne disease, according to the country's health ministry, with the fatality count surging to 804 from 281 last year.
Korean weightlifter Park Hae-jung has won 3 gold medals in the women's super heavyweight category at the World Weightlifting Championships, claiming her first title as a senior, finishing with 124 kilograms in the snatch, 165 kilograms in the clean and jerk, and 289 kilograms in total.
세계 역도 선수권 대회 여자 최중량급에서 한국의 박혜정 선수가 인상 124kg, 용상 165kg, 합계 289kg의 기록으로 금메달 3개를 수확해 성인 경기 첫 선수권을 획득했습니다. All right, well, very good news indeed. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so she won all 3 titles because when it comes to weightlifting, it is basically 2 different disciplines that you do. You do the snatch and you do the clean and jerk, and then you combine those weights together, which gives you the overall total. So you could say, I mean, obviously, if you win both of those, then you're going to win the total as well. And she's apparently the first to have done this as a Korean. I remember was Jang Mi-ran, I believe, was famous for weightlifting in the heavyweight for women. So I'm sure she's going to draw a lot of comparisons with her as she continues her career.
For sure. 자, 그럼 첫 번째 표현인데요. Claim someone's first title. Or claim a title.
Yeah. And once again, we talked about claiming lives previously. And in the same way, this is how she claimed the title. So she grabbed it for her own. And when you claim something, it can be a statement as well that you're making, right? So let's say, as an example, Donald Trump claimed to be the greatest president ever. So it's not necessarily true, but that's a statement that he's making, that he's saying. I talked about previously how Christopher Columbus claimed land for Spain. It's almost as he's taking that for Spain and saying, okay, I grabbed this is ours. And in the same sort of way, Park Hae-jung has claimed the heavyweight crown. She has taken it for herself.
Exactly. claim이라는 게 이렇게 다르게 쓰이네요. 조금 전 헤드라인에서는 claim lives, 목숨을 앗아가다 였지만 이번에는 claim a title, 어떤 타이틀을 차지했다. 그러니까 여기서는 이제 금메달에 대한 걸 얘기하고 있는 건데 이러이러한 타이틀을 얻었다가 되겠죠. And then we have some technical terms here. Snatch, clean and jerk.
Yeah, so these are the different disciplines of weightlifting. The snatch is where you grab the weight and you're going to lean over, grab the bar, and then in one motion, you're going to lift the entire weight over your head into what I would say would be like a squatting position. So you go from grabbing the bar to put the whole thing over your head in a squat position, and then you squat up with everything together. So that's the snatch.
Okay.
The clean and jerk, it's a 2-step process. Where you grab it and instead of putting the entire weight over your head, you kind of rest it on your shoulders, like under your chin, and then you squat up And then after that, you push the entire weight over your head. So it's more like the clean and jerk would be like a 3-step process, and the snatch would be 2, I guess.
I see. 네, 뭐 전문 용어이기 때문에 우리가 평상시에 쓰는 표현은 아니지만 이렇게 역도 얘기가 나왔을 때 알아두면은 유용하겠네요.
Yeah. Now, of course, there's actual different meanings. So, like the snatch, that's what we use in the actual weightlift. That's what we call it in weightlifting. But to snatch something would be to grab something in a quick motion.
Right.
Like there's like a purse snatcher is someone who grabs women's purses and steals it quickly, maybe on a motorbike or in the subway, like a thief.
Right, exactly. 뭔가 이렇게 낚아챌 때 snatching 한다라고 하기도 해요. 그러나 역도에서는 우리가 인상이라는 걸 snatch라고 하고 용상은 clean and jerk라고 하는군요. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Korean weightlifter Park Hae-jung has won 3 gold medals in the women's super heavyweight category at the World Weightlifting Championships, claiming her first title as a senior, finishing with 124 kilograms in snatch, 165 kilograms in the clean and jerk, and 289 kilograms in total. This is headline number 5.
We've been waiting for this all morning. South Korean scientist Seungmin Park has received the Ig Nobel Prize in Public Health for inventing a smart healthcare toilet that can identify a person based on their rear end and uses a variety of technologies to monitor and quickly analyze the substances a user excretes.
한국인 과학자 박승민 박사가 일명 스마트 헬스케어 병기를 발명해 올해 이그노벨상 공공보건 부문을 수상했습니다. 이 병기는 엉덩이 부위로 개인을 식별하고 다양한 기술을 활용해 배설물을 신속 분석하는 것으로 알려졌습니다. So first of all, we're going to have to talk about the Ig Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
What is it?
The Ig Nobel Prize is like the Nobel Prize, but it goes to, I don't want to say like a humorous or a jokey side, but
yes.
I mean, it is, but it's for like practical things and stuff like that. But, this is the perfect example because it does have some humor to it, but it's also quite functional.
Yeah, the first thing that any prize winner has to be able to achieve is it has to make you laugh.
Yeah.
That's their actual, their criteria. The first thing that this, any prize winner must be able to do is make other people laugh. And then it has to make you go, oh, actually, that makes sense. So there has to be science to it. And these are legit scientific experiments or researches. But it's like a quirky, funny Nobel Prize.
Outside of the box, definitely, in terms of the thought process. And I can't see a better example than this.
그렇습니다. 이그노벨상을 받으려면은 이제 일단은 웃겨야 됩니다. 그게 기본적인 조건이에요. 그렇지만 그 웃음 뒤에는 라는 어떤 사람들의 깨달음, 진짜 이럴 수 있겠네? 하는 게 있어야 되고요. 정말로 이제 과학적인 근거를 가지고 연구를 진행하는 것입니다. 그래서 그 미국에서 지금 그 박승민 박사가 이번에 보건 부문에서 상을 받게 됐다라는 거고요. 이 상도 너무 재밌습니다. 이 대회 자체가 하버드에서 주최를 하는 거고요. 진짜 이제 과학자들을 대상으로 하는 건데 이 상이요. 얼마냐면 10 trillion Zimbabwean dollars. Now, this is defunct now, so it's worth just a couple of dollars, really. 미화로 바꾸면은 이제 몇 달러 되지 않아요. 그렇지만 그냥 이렇게 명목상으로 봤을 때는 10 trillion, all these zeros. 되게 큰 돈 같잖아요. 그래서 이제 상도 좀 재미있게 하고 또 재밌는 거는 수상 소감 얘기를 하잖아요. 이제 올라가서 수상해서 너무 기쁩니다. 누구누구 고맙고요. 이게 시간 제한이 있는데 그 시간 제한을 조금이라도 넘어서면 옆에 이제 여자아이가 와서 Stop! Stop! 이렇게 소리를 지르는 게 전통이에요. 그러니까 이 전체 대회가 다 일단은 재미를 기반으로 한 과학적인 그런 대회이자 수상자들이 나온다고 보면 되겠습니다.
Who said scientists weren't fun?
Yeah, exactly. 표현 한번 볼게요. The first one is rear end.
Yeah, rear end, literally, it's just talking about your bum or your buttocks.
Yes. Your bottom.
Your 엉덩이.
your derriere. 굉장히 단어가 많아요. 그래서 사실 저도 어제 이제 여러 기사들 보면서 어떤 단어를 썼나. 그러니까 뭐 bum, bottom 이런 단어를 쓴 기사들도 있었어요. 그래서 우리는 뭘로 갈까 하다가 rear end 골랐습니다. 근데 다 엉덩이란 뜻이에요.
Yeah.
이게 조금 더 순화된 표현이죠.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little more casual. And we'll also hear rear end in one other form that we'll hear quite often in car
Cars.
accidents.
Yep.
Yeah, so when you have a car accident, if somebody rear ends you, it means that they hit you from behind.
That's
So
right.
it's not like a T-bone where they hit you from the side, but if they rear end you, then they hit you from behind. It might be just sometimes we call it a fender bender if it's just very minor and it's maybe like a scratch or not even a scratch. It's no big deal. It's just you got rear-ended, but it was just a fender bender, so it was no big deal.
Have you ever been rear-ended?
Oh yeah, definitely.
오, 정말 깜짝 놀라잖아요. 운전하고 있는데 뒷차가 쿵 부딪혔을 때 이거를 rear-ended 당했다라고
Yeah.
얘기를 합니다. 내 뒷차의 엉덩이, 뒷부분이 이게 탁 치인 거죠. 그래서 rear-end가 그런 뒷부분이라는 의미가 있어요. 자, 그 다음에 이제 excrete라는 표현입니다. 뭐 부위가 부위이다 보니까 오늘 사실 화장실 관련된 표현이 좀 있어요.
Yeah, when you excrete something, you're throwing out or squeezing out the waste in something. And in this case, obviously, it's the waste that's coming out of your rear end.
That's right.
Is exactly what it's talking about. But sometimes I think I hear it as, you excrete certain fluids when you sweat, as an example. Like the smell that you excrete when you sweat is different for every person. I think we had that in mosquito studies as well, that mosquitoes like certain smells that are excreted by different people.
That's right.
And it's usually talking about your sweat that comes out. So it's like it can be a liquid, it can be your poo.
yes.
But it's just some sort of
Excrement.
a waste. Yeah, a waste that's coming out of your body.
네, excrete라는 동사는 배설하다 아니면은 뭐 분비하다라는 의미가 되겠고요. 이렇게 배설해서 나오는 배설물 그 명사는 excrement라고 합니다. 자, 저희가 배설물 얘기를 하게 될 줄이야 헤드라인에서. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. South Korean scientist Seungmin Park has received the Ig Nobel Prize in Public Health for inventing a smart healthcare toilet that can identify a person based on their rear end and uses a variety of technologies to monitor and quickly analyze the substances a user excretes.
The credit loan delinquency rate of the nation's three neobanks has risen to the highest level since their launch, standing at 1.2% as of the end of last month.
국내 인터넷 은행 3사의 신용대출 연체율이 지난달 말 기준 1.2%를 기록하면서 출범 이후 가장 높은 수준까지 올랐습니다. Let's have a look at this story first. What's going on?
Well, yes, we see this credit loan delinquency rate actually being double than that of general banks, which is at 0.62%. And, well, there's one reason in particular. It's the high interest rate hikes. Korea has had to follow along with the rest of the world as the United States has been tightening and tightening and tightening and increasing those interest rates. We've seen since August 2021 it go from 0.5% as the benchmark rate up to 3.5%, 10 times the total.
Wow.
And 3.5% has been in place for 9 months. So it means that purse strings are tightening and people are not able to pay off their debts.
Exactly. When we talk about banks, we often talk about principal and interest. And the interest rate, as you just said, has gone up quite a lot. And so it looks like for these neobanks or internet banks in particular, users are really feeling the brunt of this. So general banks, 일반 은행들에 비해서 이 인터넷 뱅크 아니면 neobank들이 지금 특히 더 많이 이런 연체율이 높다. 이런 얘기를 해주셨고 interest rate hikes, excuse me. 그 이율이 굉장히 많이 올랐기 때문이다라는 설명까지 해주셨습니다. 0.5에서 3.5%까지 2021년 부터 지금까지 어떤 이제 비교를 해보면 상당히 많이 오른 걸 알 수 있는데요. Alright, let's look at the expressions. What's a neobank, Paul?
Well, let's break it into two parts, the prefix and the word. We have the word bank, which is where you put your money. you get loans, you can do all sorts of things at the bank. And neo meaning new. So neobank is a new bank. Basically, it's an online bank. It's a new way of banking. So it's a bank that doesn't have actual physical locations. Right. You access it through your phone or through your computer. It's internet only. It's a virtual bank, a digital bank. Many ways to say it, but neobank seems to be the buzzword these days.
I see. So digital, virtual, online, or neo.
Yes, especially for Matrix fans.
Yes. neo라는 것 자체는 새로운이라는 뜻이지만 neobank라고 하면은 인터넷 은행을 구체적으로 말하고 있네요. Give us an example sentence.
Neobanks have no offline branches. How weird. I don't understand it. I'm used to going into a bank. I'm used to using an ATM. Feels very strange for there not to be a cashier or a teller or someone to say hello.
Exactly. The next expression is to launch.
If we launch something, we start it. We set it off. We set it going. We use it for new businesses, new projects. We use it for a ship on its maiden voyage. It means to start it, to begin it.
And it can be a verb. It can also be a noun.
Yes.
In the headline, it's used as a noun.
It is.
Why don't we look at an example sentence where it's used as a verb?
Yes, this one's for you in particular. Okay. I heard that Sue is launching a new podcast about donuts at the end of this month. Is this true?
I was going to ask you exactly the same thing.
I heard a rumor. That's what the team behind the glass is saying.
You heard that I'm going to start a podcast about donuts.
On audio 학당?
넘어가겠습니다.
Oh, I've been misinformed.
자, 다시 한번 첫 번째 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. The credit loan delinquency rate of the nation's three neobanks has risen to the highest level since their launch, standing at 1.2% as of the end of last month.
The Gaya tumuli, a group of 7 burial mounds from Korea's ancient Gaya Confederacy, has been inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List for its outstanding universal value as material evidence of the diversity of ancient civilizations in East Asia.
우리나라 고대 국가 연맹체인 가야 시대의 7개 봉분을 가리키는 가야 고분군이 동아시아 고대 문명의 다양성을 보여주는 증거로서 탁월한 보편적 가치가 인정된다는 평가와 함께 유네스코 세계유산으로 등재됐습니다. All right, well, tell us about this.
Yes, very good news for the tumuli. This was announced on Sunday. The World Heritage Committee had their 45th session in Saudi Arabia, and they decided to add the Gaya tumuli to their list, which means that now we have 16 entries on the UNESCO World Heritage List for Korea. And they said that, through their geographical distribution and landscape characteristics, types of burials and grave goods, the cemeteries attest to the distinctive Gaya political system. And I think it's a well-deserved honor. They are quite extraordinary and worth a visit.
It took a good many years for Korea to really push for this site to become a UNESCO World Heritage enlisted site, and now it has become that.
Yes, and hopefully that will bring many more people to the area to visit them.
자, 그럼 표현 보도록 하겠습니다. 7 burial mounds.
Yes, a burial mound. A similar word might be grave or tomb, but there's a little bit of a difference. When we think, again, this is culturally, we have to look at the context culturally, but in English, when we talk about a grave is when a deceased person is buried under the ground. A tomb is normally a structure of some kind that can be above ground or underground, maybe reinforced with wood or stone. A burial mound is similar to a grave, but it is raised above the surface. So there is like a lump or a raised bump. That would be a burial mound.
여기서는 이제 봉분이 되겠고요. burial이라는 것 자체가 어떤 묘지의 의미를 가지고 있기는 한데 mound니까 이렇게 볼록 튀어나온 이런 이미지까지 같이 덧붙여서 우리말로 봉분이 될 것 같네요. Give us an example sentence.
The burial mounds tell us so much about what life was like back then.
자, 함께 같이 보면 좋을 단어가 이제 튜뮬리라는 건데요. 우리가 여기서 이제 가야 고분군이라고 하는 걸 영어로는 the Gaya tumuli
Yes.
하네요.
And to be honest, I think mound is a little bit underwhelming. Because they're more than just mounds. When I went to
Yeah.
Gyeongju for the first time, they're like hills. They are
massive.
incredible.
Yeah, exactly. 자, 그다음에 outstanding universal value에서 outstanding 보겠습니다.
If something is outstanding, it stands out from the crowd,
Yeah.
which means it's more important or it's bigger or it's better or it's more fabulous. In this case, they have value, not just a little value, they have a lot of value. So they have outstanding universal value.
네. 뛰어나다라는 뜻이 있습니다. outstanding이라는 것 자체가 다른 사람들보다 이렇게 뭔가 더 이렇게 주목이 되는 좀 튀는 것이 될 수도 있고요. stand out라는 표현이 있잖아요. 그래서 뭐 낭중지추 이런 표현도 사실 좀 관련이 있다고 볼 수 있을 것 같습니다. It just stands out. It's outstanding. 그래서 뛰어나다. 탁월하다 이런 의미로 보통 많이 쓰고요.
Yes, usually for a positive meaning, but sometimes negative because you can have an outstanding bill or an outstanding debt.
아, 그럴 때는 네거티브한 의미가 되겠네요. And that means you haven't paid it yet.
Exactly, and it's looking at you going, why haven't you paid me?
그렇죠. 아직 지불하지 않은 그런 빌이 있을 때 그때는 이제 부정적인 의미의 outstanding bill 할 수 있겠고요. 좋은 의미의 outstanding 예문 하나 주시겠어요?
Meryl Streep's outstanding performance in Mamma Mia will be talked about for decades. She's brilliant in that movie.
Yeah,
the
she's
way
brilliant in many movies.
Yeah, but the way she sings ABBA songs, she makes them sound like Shakespeare.
Ah, that's so true. Meryl Streep, 마마미아에서 정말 연기가 outstanding했죠.
네.
네, 탁월했습니다. 자, 다시 한번 두 번째 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. The Gaya tumuli, a group of 7 burial mounds from Korea's ancient Gaya Confederacy, has been inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List for its outstanding universal value as material evidence of the diversity of ancient civilizations in East Asia. Paul?
Reports of fraudulent fruit scams, such as limes filled with styrofoam, have surged in Peru on the back of a drastic reduction in harvests caused by heavy rainfall, prompting consumers to turn to online sales for better deals.
페루에서 폭우로 과일 수확량이 급감해 많은 소비자들이 보다 저렴한 상품을 찾아 온라인 구매에 나선 가운데 이 틈을 타 스티로폼으로 속을 채운 라임 같은 가짜 과일 사기가 기승을 부리고 있습니다. 어머나.
Yeah, this is a big deal for Peru because citrus is vital, especially for one of their main dishes. The most delicious Peruvian dish is ceviche. Have you ever had ceviche?
No, I haven't.
It's raw fish, but it's marinated in lime or lemon juice, and the acid from the citrus cooks the fish. So even though there's no heat, it's perfectly safe to eat, and it's sort of tangy and delicious. Right. The issue is that they love to eat this, but this year, because of El Nino, there's been so much rain, and the harvests of both limes and lemons have plummeted, and that means prices have been soaring. We're talking something like 4 to 5 times higher than they were just a couple of months ago. And that means there's been this surge in fraud where people have been packing lime skins with styrofoam powder and sealing them up and selling them as real limes.
먹는 걸 가지고 이렇게 장난을 하면 안 되는데.
No, it's awful. So consumers are really suffering not just from the price, but also being cheated out of the limes they want.
Just imagine, you buy a lime, you slice it in half and you find styrofoam inside.
It's unbelievable that people would do that.
Exactly. 그렇습니다. 이 폭우로 인해서 레몬이나 라임 같은 것의 수확량이 많이 줄었고 그로 인해서 좀 가격이 폭등을 하다 보니 인터넷으로 좀 더 저렴하게 살 수 없을까 하고 사람들이 많이 찾고 있는 상황이라고 합니다. 그걸 악용한 거죠. 몇몇 셀러들이 아니 정말 라임에다가 안에 스티로폼을 넣어가지고 영어로는 styrofoam이라고 하는데 이 스티로폼을 넣어서 이 가짜 과일을 판매하는 사기가 기승을 부린다라는 정말 황당한 소식이 아닐 수 없는데요. 표현 보겠습니다. fraudulent.
Yes, fraudulent coming from fraud, meaning it is some kind of deception or deceptive practice. You're cheating someone by pretending something is what it is not. In this case, we're talking about limes filled with styrofoam. It's selling something that's fake, perhaps.
Yeah.
Or, for example, saying, oh, so I've got a house to sell you. It's only going to be 100,000 won. Do you want it? And you say yes. And in fact, I've sold you my neighbor's house, which I have no right to sell you. That would be fraudulent.
It's a fraud.
Exactly.
Or you could say a person is a fraud as well.
Yes. So we talk about somebody being a fraud or committing a fraud, or we talk about fraudulent actions or fraudulent behavior.
Give us an example sentence.
The increase in fraudulent insurance claims is causing havoc for our business, Sue.
Insurance claims니까 보험을 이제 보험금을 청구하는데 fraudulent인 거죠. 사기성의 그런
네.
보험금 청구하는 사건들이 많다라는 얘기를 지금 예문을 통해서 해주셨는데 fraudulent가 이렇게 형용사로 사기치는, 사기치기 위한 아니면 부정행위의라는 의미가 있고요. 그 다음으로는 drastic라는 표현입니다.
Yes, so drastic means a very large amount or huge amount. In this case, we talk about a drastic reduction, so it means a big reduction. We can also use it when there's some kind of emergency, when there's some kind of problem, when the situation is drastic, means it's very, very bad, or we have to take drastic action, means we have to do something very urgently, because otherwise there could be a disaster.
Exactly. 극단적이거나 과감한 급격한의 의미의 drastic가 있는데요. drastic 들어간 예문은 뭐가 있을까요?
This is a drastic situation, Sue. The Wi-Fi isn't working!
어떻게 와이파이가 지금 안 잡혀. 이거 정말 너무 끔찍한 상황이야. 극단적인 상황이야. 라는 그런 드라마틱한 예문을 준비해 주셨군요. You could maybe take some drastic action.
I will.
Yeah.
I will be looking at the internet server and making sure we can get online as soon as possible, Sue.
네. 이제 아주 큰 극단적인 어떤 행동, 조치를 취하게 됐을 때 take drastic action이라고 하기도 하죠. 자, 그럼 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Reports of fraudulent fruit scams, such as limes filled with styrofoam, have surged in Peru on the back of a drastic reduction in harvests caused by heavy rainfall, prompting consumers to turn to online sales for better deals.
1 in 10 Japanese people are now 80 or older, according to government data. The latest worrying milestone in the rapidly greying country's demographic crisis.
일본 정부 자료에 따르면 현재 일본 인구 10명 중 1명이 80세 이상인 것으로 나타났습니다. 이는 급속하게 고령화되고 있는 일본의 인구 위기를 또 한 번 나타내는 우려스러운 지표로 보입니다. 그래요. 일본 얘긴데요. 10명 중 1명, 10%가량이 80세 이상이군요.
Yes, so we have the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications of Japan have released these statistics, and they're saying that the elderly, the proportion of elderly, and when we're talking about elderly, we're talking about people of 65 and older, is at a record high. 29.1% of the population, and that is the highest rate in the world. Japan has the oldest population in the world as such.
So 3 in 10 people in Japan are over 65.
Yes, and 1 in 10 are over 80. Yes.
Wow.
And Japan has also been dealing with a population decline. It's been in a steady decline since the 1980s. It's got a fertility rate of 1.3. So that's 1.3 children per person, far below 2.1, which is what is needed for a stable population. So it's in crisis, and it's a really serious situation.
Absolutely. And experts are saying this proportion of people over 80 is only going to get bigger.
Yes, it's very, very true. And, to be honest, here in Korea, we're also worried about our population aging as well. I feel like when I'm going to go grey, there's going to be a lot of people going grey with me.
Very true. 자, 그러면 표현 보겠습니다. 자, 여기서 rapidly graying이라는 표현이 나오는데요. gray라는 형용사로 여기서 graying 했는데.
Yes. So we can switch it with aging. meaning getting older, because one of the signs of getting older for a lot of people, not everyone, but I think most of us get grey hairs. I mean, if you're watching on the 보이는 radio, if you take a good look at my beard, for example, you'll see a fair few grey hairs there. So we're talking about a greying country, meaning it's getting older, meaning a larger percentage of the population is older.
그러니까 gray가 이 색깔 회색이지만 동사로 쓸 수도 있습니다. 회색이 되어 가다라는 게 우리는 사실 백발이 되어 간다라고 해서 white를 써야 될 것 같거든요. 그러나 영어로는 gray, 회색을 쓰는 게 일반적이죠. 그래서 동사로서의 gray는 백발이 되어 가다 아니면 고령화가 되다가 되겠고 형용사일 경우에는 이제 그렇게 고령화되는 로 해석하면 되겠죠. Give us an example sentence.
Korea's greying population is a cause for concern.
그렇습니다. 네, 그 다음에는 demographic crisis는요?
Oh my goodness, a crisis is an emergency, a drastic situation, if you will, something that we're going to have to deal with. And demographic is all about the demographics of the country, the population, the number of people. So a demographic crisis is a crisis of population. The fact is there's too many old people, not enough young people.
네, 그래서 학문 중에 demography가 인구학이 되겠죠.
네.
인구와 관련된 이제 뭐 성비라든지 뭐 나이라든지 이런 것들을 다 분석하는 것이 다 demography인데 demographic가 그것의 형용사가 되겠습니다. crisis는 위기죠. Give us an example sentence.
Low births, aging population, we have a demographic crisis.
자, 다시 한번 네 번째 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. 1 in 10 Japanese people are now 80 or older, according to government data, the latest worrying milestone in the rapidly graying country's demographic crisis.
Climate activists sprayed orange and yellow paint on the columns of Germany's symbol of reunification, the Brandenburg Gate, on Sunday, calling for urgent action against climate change.
지난 일요일 기후활동가들이 독일 분단과 통일의 상징인 베를린의 브란덴부르크 문에 주황색과 노란색 페인트를 뿌리며 기후변화 대응에 즉각 나설 것을 요구하는 시위를 벌였습니다. Okay, so tell us more.
Yes, so these activists are part of a group called Last Generation. And one of their priorities is getting Germany to stop using all fossil fuels by 2030. And that means doing anything they can to get Germany to do this. So they used fire extinguishers filled with paint to make their protest. And 14 activists affiliated with Last Generation were detained by the police. And the Brandenburg Gate was cordoned off, and I expect it will be cleaned.
There are many climate activists around the world and many groups, to that matter as well. And a lot of them, they try to garner attention, media attention especially.
Yes.
And then they'll say, this is what we want to say, you know, do something for the climate. So I think the message behind it is probably good, but the action that comes before it sometimes can make you go, was that necessary?
Yeah, I think they're sometimes referred to as stunts in the media. You'll hear them referred to some kind of climate change stunt, like throwing mashed potatoes at a painting, or
gluing your hand to, an art piece or something.
Yes, or sprinkling orange glitter at Wimbledon.
Blocking the road and not letting cars go by.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they're divisive. These kind of stunts and protests. Some people say, "Good on you." Some people say, Why do you need to do that? We all know that climate change is a big issue, that the climate crisis is real. But the question is, should we be painting over the Brandenburg Gate to get people's attention?
그러게 말입니다. divisive라고 하면은 이제 양분이 된다. 그러니까 양쪽으로 사람들이 갈린다라는 뜻이 있어서 이 climate activist가 지금 말한 요 그룹 말고도 전 세계적으로 참 많은데 그때 이제 하는 행동들 중에는 꼭 그런 행동을 했어야 됐나? 라는 일부의 반응. 그다음 또 한편으로는 잘했다라고 하는 아주 다른 두 가지 반응들이 보통 나오죠. 그럴 때 쓸 수 있는 말이 That action is very divisive. 자, 표현 보겠습니다. Climate activists.
An activist is someone who takes action. often in the form of protests. So you can be an activist for any kind of organization. They're normally someone who wants to save the environment or protest against the government or whatever it may be, but it's someone who's not just sitting at their computer and writing on the internet, but they're actually going out into the real world and doing things.
그래요. 그래서 climate activist는 기후 활동가 아니면 기후 운동가라고 하죠. Give us an example sentence.
The activists disrupted the tennis match to get their point across.
And that really happened.
It did at Wimbledon this year. There was some disruption.
네. 자, 그다음에는 urgent action.
Urgent action means well, we have to do something very quickly because there is some kind of emergency, some kind of big problem. In this case, we're talking about the climate crisis. Many people say we need to do something fast.
Yeah.
We can't just wait around. We have to do it now, and that would be urgent action.
And when you're writing a business email, for example, and you really want the other person to read this ASAP, you might say in the header, urgent.
Exactly. Means this needs your attention right now.
네. 급하다, 긴급 이메일 이런 의미로 이메일 제목란에다가 urgent 쓰면은 아무래도 좀 빨리 읽게 되겠죠. 그래서 급하다라는 의미가 있고 action은 행동이니까 urgent action, 긴급한 조치가 되겠네요. Give us an example.
Make no mistake, urgent action must be taken against this rodent infestation. There's rats in the donut zoo.
아유, 쥐들이 너무 많아가지고 당장 우리가 어떤 긴급한 조치를 취해야 될 것 같다라고 상상해서 예문을 만들어 주셨는데, I really don't want to be in a place where we have to have, urgent action for rodent infestation.
I don't know, I quite like mice. They're very cute.
I like hamsters more than mice.
Okay, they're all rodents.
They are. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Climate activists sprayed orange and yellow paint on the columns of Germany's symbol of reunification, the Brandenburg Gate, on Sunday, calling for urgent action against climate change. 자, 이렇게 해서 헤드라인 살펴봤습니다. 참고로 이 브랜든버그 게이트의 컬럼에다가 칠을 했어요. 그래서 그 기둥에다가 스프레이 페인트를 이렇게 한 그런 사연이 아니죠. 사건이 되겠습니다. 이제부터 헤드라인을 하나씩 자세히 살펴보겠습니다.
The government has passed a bill to waive expressway tolls for all vehicles during the upcoming 4-day Chuseok holiday from September 28th to October 1st.
정부가 오는 9월 28일부터 10월 1일까지 추석 연휴 나흘 동안 모든 차량의 고속도로 통행료를 면제하는 방침을 확정했습니다. Well, let's have a look at this story first.
Right. It seems simple, but it's also, I was looking at it and I was a little confused because I was thinking, when does it start? When does it end? So fees for all expressways will be exempt from midnight on September 27th. So that's also 0-100 hours,
그렇죠.
September 28th.
9월 28일 0시부터
Until midnight on October 1st or 0-100 hours on October 2nd.
그렇죠. 10월 1일에서 10월 2일로 넘어가는 그 자정까지가 되겠습니다.
Right. And of course, it's to decrease the financial burden of those who will be visiting their hometowns over Chuseok holidays, which is one of the two major holidays in Korea.
Exactly. So well, let's have a look at the expressions. You mentioned exempt earlier on.
Right. So it's similar to the expression that was used in our headline, to waive something. It doesn't mean wave. So make sure to take care of the spelling. It has an I in there. It's W-A-I-V-E. And it means to refrain from enforcing something like a fine or a fee or a regulation. And also, as we mentioned, to be exempt from paying a fee. We also talk about visa waiver programs.
Yeah.
So that means if we're visiting another country and if we have that visa waiver program between my country and the other country, we don't need a visa. So we are exempt from having a visa.
그럴 때는 비자 면제라는 뜻으로 visa waiver라고 하죠. 자, 그렇다면은 waive, 면제하다가 들어간 예문 주시죠.
Right. Her tuition fee was waived for this semester.
이번 학기에 학자금 면제가 됐다.
I would love for that to have happened during college.
자, 그 다음으로는 expressway toll입니다.
Expressway tolls, we can say expressway, we can also say highway. It's the road where you can travel at a faster distance, or not faster distance, faster speed. Tolls are the fees that you need to pay to use the expressway. So it's a charge that's payable for permission to use a particular bridge or a road.
So the place where you pay this would be the toll gate. 자, 고속도로 통행료라는 뜻으로 expressway toll, T-O-L-L이라고 합니다.
Right. And I also do mention, when we talk about tolls, we talk about death tolls a lot when we talk about the news. So the death toll means it's the number of deaths.
그때는 이제 무슨 수라는 뜻으로 사망자 수 할 때 death toll 스펠링이 똑같아요.
Yes.
그러나 의미는 다르다는 거. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The government has passed a bill to waive expressway tolls for all vehicles during the upcoming 4-day Chuseok holiday from September 28th to October 1st.
A survey conducted by the Ministry of Health and the Korea Health Insurance Review and Assessment Service has revealed significant differences in uninsured medical expenses for procedures like cataract surgery and HIFU treatment.
보건복지부와 건강보험 심사평가원이 공개한 바에 따르면 백내장 수술과 하이프 시술 같은 비급여 항목의 진료비가 병원에 따라 상당한 차이가 나는 것으로 나타났습니다. 네, 이제 어제 발표된 바에 따르면은 오늘부터 이제 구체적으로 국내에 있는 많은 병원들의 이런 의료비가 공개가 된다라고 해요. 그래서 특히 이제 비급여 같은 경우에는 천차만별이거든요.
Yeah.
그래서 이걸 보면서 이제 여기는 이렇구나, 저기는 저렇구나 비교가 가능할 것 같고요. 얘기를 한번 해볼까요? Tell us more about this.
Right. So the uninsured procedures are those that the patient, of course, covers 100% of the cost, and the hospital gets to decide on the cost. So that's why it differs so much from hospital to hospital. For example, if you're getting an MRI scan or the cataract procedure that we mentioned, the prices are set to differ from as much as some places, the cataract procedure, it costs 300,000 won. Other places, it can range up to 9 million won.
Wow.
So it's a very big difference there. The HIFU procedure that we mentioned, they say that it ranged from 300,000 won to 25 million won. So that's an 83-fold difference.
네.
So big differences in the cost. So I guess, as consumers, we need to really be careful and we need to look around and see, and pick and choose because we need to not only worry about the quality of the service, but also the cost.
그러니까 여기서 cataract surgery가 백내장 수술이고요. HIFU treatment가 하이프 시술인데 어느 병원에 가느냐에 따라서 정말 많게는 80배 정도의 가격 차이가 나는 곳도 있을 정도로 수십 배의 가격 차이가 나더라라는 얘기입니다. 자, 표현을 한번 볼게요. There's a significant difference.
Yeah, significant difference here. So it means it's a big difference, a very big, important, worthy of attention or noteworthy difference. So for example, the company saw a significant increase in revenue. So all companies would love to hear something like that. But it can also mean to have a particular meaning or indicative of something, as in, I had a dream and I feel like it had a significant meaning.
상당한 어떤 의미가 있는 꿈을 내가 꿨다.
Yeah.
significant, 아주 중요하다, 상당히 뭐뭐하다라는 의미가 있을 수 있고요. 우리가 배우자에 대해서 This is my significant other.
Right.
이렇게 얘기하기도 하죠.
Yeah.
또 다른 나인데 굉장히 중요한 그런 상대다라는 뜻으로. 자, 그 다음에 procedure는요?
Right. Procedure is like a medical procedure, or we say surgical procedure. So it's a series of steps that are followed in a regular, definite order. So we usually use it in a medical context because if you don't follow something in a regular order at a hospital,
Right.
you'll be in big trouble.
Exactly. procedure 자체가 이제 절차라는 뜻이 있지만 여기서는 수술이나 시술을 말하겠네요. 자, 다시 읽어보겠습니다. A survey conducted by the Ministry of Health and the Korea Health Insurance Review and Assessment Service has revealed significant differences in uninsured medical expenses for procedures like cataract surgery and HIFU treatment.
The Korea Consumer Agency and the Fair Trade Commission have issued a cautionary warning regarding potential damages from excessive penalty fees for canceling airline tickets, the loss of delivery items, and the expiration of gift certificates during 추석.
한국소비자원과 공정거래위원회가 추석 연휴 동안 항공권 취소 시 과도한 위약금 부과, 택배 물품 분실, 상품권 유효기간 경과 등으로 인한 피해 사례가 발생할 것으로 우려됨에 따라 소비자 피해 주의보를 발령했습니다. So traditionally around this time of the year, gift giving is the norm and along with giving gifts and receiving gifts and all of the, the good things that come with it. Unfortunately, sometimes we hear of damages.
Yeah.
여러 가지 피해 소식도 좀 들리기도 하죠. 보통
Right.
이맘때쯤에.
Right, lots of damage, right.
Yeah.
So, of course, a lot of people are expected to travel abroad during Chuseok because we have that long, extended Chuseok break. So they're going to be cracking down on these excessive penalty fees for any sort of cancellations, maybe non-performance for flight delays, cancellations. And we give a lot of gift certificates during Chuseok as well. So the government will be checking for places that refuse to accept them if they've expired or decline to refund these gift certificate, the balance left after, they've paid for a certain amount and the balance is left. And if they refuse to give that balance back, they'll be cracking down on that.
Some examples have been reported. Could you tell us about this person who tried to get her tickets to Hawaii refunded and she only got a little bit back?
Yeah. So there was a person who purchased 3 tickets to Hawaii for 5.38 million won, but they realized that the booking wasn't correct, so they called to cancel the tickets, but they only received 1.24 million back as 4 million were deemed as the cancellation penalty fee. So that means the fee was bigger than the amount that they got back.
그러니까요. 이게 무슨 얘기냐면 사실 추석 기간 동안에 우리가 선물을 주고받는 것도 많이 하지만 또 여행도 많이들 가십니다. 그래서 이 기간 동안에 여행 환불 규정을 정확하게 파악을 좀 하셔야 될 것 같아요. 왜냐면 평소와 좀 다를 수도 있고 지금 얘기하신 사례가 3인 가족이 하와이 왕복 항공권을 구입했다가 몇 시간 만에 잘못 예약했네 해서 환불해달라고 이제 연락을 했답니다. 그랬더니 이 500만 원 중에서 100만 원만 환불받을 수 있습니다. 결국은 취소 수수료를 400만 원 낸 셈이에요. 사실상. 그러니까 왜 이거밖에 돌려받지 못하나요? 그랬더니 지금 이 기간에는 이게 규정입니다.
Right.
이랬대요. 그러니까 여러분도 혹시 여행을 가신다든지 택배도 피해 사례가 많거든요.
Yes.
이게 이제 피해 사례라는 게 그러니까 그런 규정 그다음에 어떻게 해야 되는지를 우리가 좀 잘 파악을 해서 피해를 좀 막을 수 있을 텐데.
Right. So when you're booking something, make sure to look and see if you can cancel it within a certain time, or if you can, if you have to pay any sort of cancellation fees.
Right.
I was actually sending a postal package the other day, and they told me right now everything gets lost. Everyone's sending packages, so you have to be extra careful, get it insured, or make sure you pack it in a big sort of box bigger than the package actually is so that it doesn't get lost.
Exactly. And you have to make sure to write exactly how much this is worth, just in case it gets broken or lost or something and you can get compensated.
That's right.
택배 물품 같은 경우에는 또 어떤 사례가 있었느냐면 이제 누군가가 아마 와인병 같은 거였던 것 같아요. 그래서 와인을 이제 택배로 보냈는데 그게 보내지는 과정에서 약간 손상이 왔던 것 같습니다. 그래서 택배사에다가 요거를 이제 배상을 해달라라고 했더니 정확한 금액을 적지 않았기 때문에 배상이 어렵다. 그래서 여러분도 이제 택배 보내실 때 거기 보통 쓰게 돼 있잖아요.
Yes.
물품의 가격이 얼마냐.
Right.
대충 쓰는 경우 많거든요.
Yeah.
사실 저도 좀 그렇습니다. 그냥 뭐 대충 쓰는 경우 있는데
Because normally it doesn't get lost.
그렇게 하지 마시라는
Yeah.
거죠. 예, 특히
But the
이번에
exact amount.
추석 기간에는 이런 물량이 워낙 많고 그러니까 피해를 좀 줄이기 위해서 혹시라도 배상을 받을 일을 만에 하네 그런 일을 대비하기 위해서는 정확하게 잘 적으시고 여러 가지 규정 잘 확인하시고 피해가 없도록 하셔야겠습니다. 우리 피해 얘기 많이 했는데요.
Yes.
표현 보겠습니다.
Okay.
Potential damages.
Right, potential damages. So potential means it hasn't happened yet, but it might. So it has or shows the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. And in this case, we're talking about damages, which could mean monetary loss. So losses that are likely to occur, losses that have not been incurred yet, but probably will.
네, 예상되는 피해라는 뜻으로 damages가 쓰였습니다. 때에 따라서는 이 damages가 피해 보상금이 될 수도 있고요. 우리가 그냥 damage something 했을 땐 뭔가 손상을 입히다의 의미도 있지만 그런 거 말고도 피해라는 의미가 있다는 거. 자, 그리고 expiration dates.
Yes, do you check the expiration date when you are buying milk?
I do.
I always do. Yes, I always do. I always look for the one that has the latest date on it. So it's the ending of a fixed period, usually of a contracted period. So for example, the idol group members parted ways after the expiration of their contract.
아, 계약이 만료되자 그룹의 멤버들이 다 해체하고 각자의 길을 갔군요. 자, 여기서 말하는 expiration, 그 만료일은요, 상품권에 해당이 되는 겁니다. 그래서 인터넷으로 이제 여러 가지 상품권도 뭐 구입할 수 있겠죠. 그럴 때 혹시 이게 날짜가 너무 임박한 것은 아닌지 반드시 확인을 하시고 마찬가지로 피해를 좀 줄일 수 있도록
I mean,
하셨으면
because the
좋겠습니다.
government can only do so much. So we have to be smart consumers.
Absolutely. 특히 이 기간은 그런 게 몰리기 때문에 통상적으로 피해가 많이 발생하는데 미리 지금 이제 그런 피해를 줄이시라는 이제 피해 주의보가 발령된 것이네요. I'm going to read it one more time. The Korea Consumer Agency and the Fair Trade Commission have issued a cautionary warning regarding potential damages from excessive penalty fees for cancelling airline tickets, the loss of delivery items, and the expiration of gift certificates during Chuseok.
5 Americans jailed for years in Iran have been freed as part of a prisoner swap mediated by Qatar after $6 billion of Iranian funds held in South Korea reached banks in Doha.
이란에 수년간 수감돼 있던 미국인 5명이 카타르가 중재한 양국 수감자 교환 합의에 따라 석방됐습니다. 이번 맞교환은 한국에 묶여있던 이란 자금 60억 달러가 해제돼 중재국 카타르로 송금된 직후 이루어졌습니다. Let's have a look at this news first.
Right, so I think the latest I heard these Americans have arrived in America, right? So Washington claimed that these 5 U.S. citizens were imprisoned on arbitrary charges as the 5 Iranians in the U.S. were jailed on charges of U.S. sanctioned violations. And the swap comes after months of indirect negotiations that was mediated by Qatar.
Well, the friction between America and Iran actually led to some sort of a friction between South Korea and Iran because of those funds that were here.
Right, right. So because of those funds, Seoul, actually, after the swap occurred, expressed hopes that relations with Tehran will improve since, you know, these the funds have been released. But the Central Bank of Iran has said that legal action will be pursued against the South Korean government for the losses incurred during or due to the devaluation of the Korean won during the freeze.
Okay. Well, let's have a look at the expressions. The first one is prisoner swap.
Right. I think we talked about swap before. So it's kind of like an exchange or a trade-off. So, you know, I'll give you this, you give me that.
Swap.
Yeah.
Let's swap. 우리 맞바꾸자, 교환하자. exchange라고도 하고요. 그 다음에 아이들끼리 미국에서는 let's trade. 이렇게 많이 하죠. 네. 그래서 다 마찬가지 의미가 될 텐데 상황에 따라서 다른 단어를 씁니다. 여기서는 prisoner swap, 수감자 교환.
So I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
서로 등 긁어주자. 네. 자, 그 다음에는 mediate인데요.
Right. So mediating is intervening between people, especially when they are in a dispute, to bring an agreement or reconciliation. You can also say if someone is mediating, they're kind of acting as a peacemaker.
중재하다, mediate. 그리고 중재자, mediator가 되겠네요. 자, 그러면 예문 주시죠.
So we tried to mediate between the opposing sides, but they wouldn't stop fighting.
양쪽이 이렇게 반대 입장을 보여서 중재를 하려고 했으나 싸움은 멈추지 않았다. 다시 한번 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. 5 Americans jailed for years in Iran have been freed as part of a prisoner swap mediated by Qatar after $6 billion of Iranian funds held in South Korea reached banks in Doha.
A new study finds that people who work from home all the time are predicted to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 54% compared with on-site workers.
상시 재택근무를 할 경우 사무실에 출근해 일하는 것보다 온실가스 배출량을 54% 줄일 수 있다는 새로운 연구 결과가 나왔습니다. So obviously, because you're not commuting, you're not polluting, right?
Yes, right. I can hear, people who work from home or do remote work and love it saying, yes, another great reason for us to stay at home and work from home because we get so much more work done.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do say that they get a lot done. They can save money because they don't have to commute. They can save time. So they list a lot of advantages to working from home. And this just seems to be another one. They say that people who work remotely emit less greenhouse gases by up to 54%. And they say the main causes were the less use of office energy as well as fewer emissions from, of course, the daily commute.
출퇴근을 일단 하지 않아도 되니까 거기서 배출되는 이산화탄소라든지 이런 것들도 줄일 수 있고 뿐만 아니라 사무실에 가서 사무실에 여러 가지 에너지 쓰잖아요. 에어컨도 쓸 것이고 히터도 쓰고 여러 가지 그런 것도 어쨌든 이제 한 사람이 안 감으로 인해서 조금 줄일 수 있다 보니 이것을 이제 좀 계산을 해보니까 미국의 사례입니다만 대체적으로 이제 상시 재택근무를 하는 사람이 상시 출퇴근을 하는 사람보다 온실가스 배출량이 50% 이상이더라.
Yeah.
네. 표현 보겠습니다. Be predicted to do something.
Right, predicted. It means to foretell on the basis of observation, experience, or scientific reason. Here, they've used scientific reason. They've done some sort of research, and they're saying, we did this research, and it is predicted, it's foretold that it is you will probably reduce a lot of greenhouse emissions if you stay at home and work.
Yeah, and it's used in the passive voice here, but it can, of course, be used in the active voice. You could say, people have predicted that, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, it says that people who work from home are predicted to do something. 네, 수동태로 쓰였고요. 예측된다가 되겠습니다. The next one is on-site workers.
Right. So it means to take place or the situation at a particular place or site to exist or existing or happening in the place where people are working or involved in a particular activity. In the article that we're talking about, it means at the office.
Yeah.
Right.
This is used in the news as well. On-site reporters.
Yeah.
They are 현장에 있는 그런 이제 취재진.
Where the scene is happening.
그렇죠. 제 뒤로는 지금 이런 일이 있습니다. 이러면서 이제 on-site reporter 있을 수 있는데 현장이라는 뜻이어서 on-site worker는 직접 출퇴근을 하는 그런 사람을 얘기하겠습니다.
Right.
네, 예문은요?
We got to see the filming process on site.
와, 영화 촬영하는 거를 현장에서 우리가 볼 수 있었어. 자, 그러면 헤드라인 다시 읽어보겠습니다. A new study finds that people who work from home all the time are predicted to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 54% compared with on-site workers.
Dollars in the second quarter of the year, despite rising interest rates curbing bank credit, according to the Institute of International Finance.
국제금융연구소 IIF는 금리 상승이 은행 대출을 억제하고 있음에도 올 6월 말 기준 전 세계 누적 부채 총액이 307조 달러로 사상 최고치를 기록했다고 발표했습니다. Oh dear. So global debt has hit a new high.
Yeah, not really surprising though. I think we can imagine what's going on right now.
Right.
That, more people are taking debt. Taking on more debt.
Yeah.
And it's not just people. It's people, it's corporations, it's governments. Actual total debt rose by $10 trillion in the first 6 months of the year. So this is just up until June.
So rising interest rates hasn't helped.
No, surprise. Yeah, people it's sort of leading to the debt load. But, it even says in the headline, despite interest rates curbing bank credit, so there's actual less credit available.
Right.
However, with interest rates being higher, it's
Yeah.
making the total debt load larger.
이 307조 달러를 우리 돈으로 환산하면은 약 40경 8천조 원 정도라고 합니다. All right, let's look at the expressions. The first one is despite something.
Despite something means like even though this thing happened, the next thing you say is a little bit surprising. So it was raining yesterday, but despite the weather, I still went for a walk.
Yeah.
So you might be a bit surprising to hear I went for a walk in the rain.
And you could also say in spite of.
Sure.
The same thing.
Yep, exactly.
But for just one word, then you'd say despite.
Right.
뭐뭐에도 불구하고. And the next expression is to curb something.
To curb something. So in this case, it means to reduce something.
Yeah.
And also to try and reduce it and then control it. So during COVID, we talked a lot about certain restrictions, certain rules that they were designed to
Right.
curb the spread of the disease.
curb, C-U-R-B는 뭔가를 억제하거나 제한하다. Give us an example sentence.
Well, I'm trying to curb my sugar intake these days.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Because some people say sugar is worse for you than alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I've had to try and curb, or I'm in the process of curbing, is my ketchup consumption, because ketchup has quite a lot of sugar in it, and I love ketchup.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm one of those.
Do you have
people.
ketchup with everything?
Not everything, but a lot of things. So
okay.
I'm trying to curb that.
그래요. curb my sugar intake, curb ketchup 이렇게 지금 얘기를 해주셨는데요. 그런 걸 좀 줄이려고 한다라는 뜻이 되겠죠. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Global debt hit a record $307 trillion in the second quarter of the year, despite rising interest rates, curbing bank credit, according to the Institute of International Finance. Okay, let's move on to the second headline.
1 out of every 10 apartment transactions in Seoul during August set a new record high price, according to data from a real estate platform.
네, 국내 한 부동산 플랫폼 자료에 따르면 지난달 서울에서 거래된 아파트 10건 중 1건이 신고가를 기록한 것으로 나타났습니다. Wow, that's quite a big percentage. And if we look at the whole country, apparently Seoul had the highest percentage.
Jeju, actually.
Jeju also had a high percentage.
Jeju had 18%.
Oh, 18%. Right.
So that was the only place that the record high prices exceeded 10% of the transactions. And the largest price increase occurred this is not surprising to anyone who lives in Seoul, in Apgujeong. That's where we saw the largest price increase.
그렇군요. 지금 이제 서울 그리고 또 이제 제주도 같은 경우에도 제주도는 오히려 더 비율이 높네요. 18%면은 이제 그런 신고가를 기록한 부동산 거래가 있었다라고 합니다. Well, why don't we have a look at the expressions here? We're talking about transactions, apartment transactions.
So in this case, it would be somebody purchases an apartment, purchases or rents. Either way, you're giving money in exchange for a product or service.
Right.
That's usually what you'll see transactions as. But sometimes you'll also see transactions, for example, in sports. If two teams trade players, they'll call that a transaction because they've exchanged player for player. So a transaction can still be exchanging, like I could exchange a product I have for a service that you provide. Normally it's money though,
Yeah.
but not always.
그렇죠. 꼭 돈이 아닐 수는 있지만 어떤 형태의 거래를 우리가 transaction이라고 하는데요. Give us an example sentence.
Ooh, transaction. The company collects a small fee on every transaction. I can think of one famous online company that helps you make payments.
Yeah. And then they collect a fee.
Yeah.
그래요.
Quite the pal they are.
You use it for paying stuff, right?
Yeah.
그래요.
Paying your pals.
거래를 할 때마다 소정의 어떤 수수료를 그 collecting한다, 뭐 받아간다, 징수한다 이런 의미가 될 텐데요. 여기서 거래, transaction이 나왔고 보통 collect a fee라고 하면은 뭔가를 걷어들인다라는 의미가 있습니다. 우리가 tax 할 때도 collect tax 얘기 많이 하기도 하죠. 자, 그 다음에 플랫폼은 뭘까요?
So in this case, we're talking about a digital platform. So there's many different kinds of digital platforms. Usually what we're talking about in most digital platforms have a website and an app. Some only have one or some only have apps, but most you can access through a computer as well as mobile.
Yeah.
So there's many different kinds, right? This particular one is called it's like a real estate marketplace, so people can search for real estate to buy or to rent. But there's so many other kinds of platforms. The biggest ones would be, of course, social media platforms. Right? Everybody uses all the various ones. You've got other ones like knowledge platforms like Quora, where you can go and ask questions. So many of those types. Then you've got media sharing platforms. Everybody loves YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're on YouTube right now. That's a media sharing platform. So if you're watching on YouTube, you are on that platform. And then we've got, of course, service-oriented platforms where you can get things like order taxis, for example. Or food delivery. Those are service-oriented platforms.
정말 여러 가지 플랫폼이 있네요. So many different types of platforms.
So many different types. And it's a term you hear all the time these days. There's many different usages for it, but if you're talking about the online world, this is what we're talking about.
That's right.
Apps and websites.
그렇습니다. 온라인상에서 이렇게 뭐 생산, 소비, 유통 등등등 이런 것들이 이루어지는 장소를 플랫폼이라고 하는데 소셜미디어 플랫폼, 그다음에 지식 플랫폼, 미디어 플랫폼 여러 가지 예를 들어주셨고 저희도 지금 그런 미디어 플랫폼 유튜브 EBS 라디오 공식 채널로 스트리밍 중이죠. 자, 그래서 그냥 우리가 플랫폼이라고 하는 거 영어로 플랫폼. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. 1 out of every 10 apartment transactions sold during August set a new record high price, according to data from a real estate platform.
The Asian Development Bank has maintained its growth outlook for the South Korean economy at 1.3%, but suggested that the country will experience weaker than expected inflation.
아시아개발은행 ADB가 올해 한국 경제 성장률을 기존 전망치인 1.3%로 유지했습니다. 그러나 향후 겪게 될 인플레이션은 예상보다 약할 것으로 전망했습니다. All right, so tell us more about this.
Well, the ADB had revised down the growth outlook for Korea by 0.2 of a percentage point in July.
Yeah.
They had cited sluggish exports and investment, but now they're saying that they are expecting Korea to actually experience a rebound in exports. However, because of higher borrowing costs, this is likely to weigh down domestic consumption and investment. So as exports improve, well, now the higher interest rate environment's going to catch up to everybody and they're thinking, hurt consumption, which, Korea really is it's an export-based economy and a consumption-based economy.
And then when it comes to inflation, they actually downgraded this by 0.2 percentage points?
That's right. Yeah, 0.2 of a percentage point. So they're estimating Korea's inflation for the whole year will be 3.3%. And they've left their growth outlook, not inflation, just growth, GDP growth for 2024 at 2.2%. That's unchanged. They maintained that estimate.
자, 일단은 growth estimate는 내년 성장률, 올해 성장률, 그래서 growth estimate, 성장률이 되겠고요. 그것의 전망치죠. 지난 7월에 나왔던 전망치와 똑같은 전망치가 이번에도 나왔습니다. 그래서 그것이 유지가 됐다라는 표현 잠시 후에 보게 될 거고요. 그 다음에는 여기서 말하는 inflation은 물가 상승률을 말하고 있는데 이거는 이제 기존보다 0.2 퍼센티지 포인트 낮춰서 전망을 이번에 했네요. Alright, let's look at the expressions. 첫 번째 표현이 바로 그 유지하다인데요. maintain.
To keep something at the same level. So sometimes we talk about you need to maintain your composure. Sometimes if, when difficult things happen or like say when you're driving, for example.
I see what you mean.
In this case, it means they haven't changed their growth outlook. They kept it at the same level.
좀 침착함을 유지해야 된다라고 할 때도 쓸 수 있고 아니면은 여기서처럼 어떤 전망치가 기존의 전망치와 이번의 전망치가 같으니까 유지가 됐다라고 할 때도 쓸 수 있네요. maintain. What's an example sentence for this?
For maintain. Let me see if I have one here. We need. So this would. I was thinking here. This is what maybe a manager, a sales manager might say to the other employees. We need to work hard to maintain our current sales numbers.
아하, 지금과 같은 영업 실적을 유지하기 위해서 우리 열심히 노력합시다. 이런 문장이네요. And what about weaker than expected?
Weaker than expected means that it's not as strong as they previously thought. They thought inflation would be higher. So they were actually wrong. And the opposite could be stronger than expected, right? We're expecting stronger than expected sales this month. Sales were stronger than expected.
You could go to the theater and say, oh, the movie was better than expected. Or
Right, yeah.
it was not as good as expected.
Yeah, not as good as I expected. Below my expectations. Right? You told me about movies. Barbie, you said did it exceed your expectations or?
I enjoyed it. But I enjoyed the other Oppenheimer
more than
I watched
Barbie.
both.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Barbie was great.
Okay.
But I thought Oppenheimer was better.
I'm expecting to enjoy Oppenheimer. Barbie, when I watch that, it'll be better than expected if I don't puke all over myself in the first 10 minutes.
기대치가 너무 낮은 거 아닌가요? You have very low expectations.
Very low expectations.
알겠습니다.
Yeah, down with the patriarchy.
그래서 expect가 이게 예상하다, 뭐 기대하다가 될 수 있는데 weaker than expected니까 예상보다 약했다는 의미고 반대말로는 stronger than expected. 예상보다 뭔가 강하다라고 할 수 있겠네요. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The Asian Development Bank has maintained its growth outlook for the South Korean economy at 1.3%, but suggested that the country will experience weaker than expected inflation. Now,
Olive oil prices have spiked to fresh records as severe droughts in major producing countries continue to crimp supplies, driving desperate people to resort to stealing it.
국제 올리브유 가격이 기록적인 수준으로 치솟았습니다. 극도로 건조한 날씨 때문에 주요 생산국들의 생산량이 급감한 것이 원인으로 현지에서는 관련 절도 사건까지 발생하고 있는 것으로 알려졌습니다. Oh dear.
A lot of this is because of Spain. Spain is the world's largest producer and exporter of olive oil. They've been battered by intense drought for months, and they've just recorded their third hottest summer ever.
Wow.
So because of this, Spain's olive oil production in this most recent season dropped by more than 50% compared to normal.
So less supply, higher prices.
Higher prices.
Yeah.
And we mentioned in the headline about people stealing it. In late August, nearly 500,000 euros worth of olive oil was stolen from 2 mills in Spain.
Oh dear.
And there's also been heat waves and droughts in Italy and Greece as well.
뭐 많게는 가격이 100%까지 오르기도 했다고 하는데요. 표현을 한번 볼까요? What's this word here? Crimp.
To reduce something. So one of the articles I was reading about the first story we did was talking about how inflation is crimping growth. And that's one of the reasons why the debt to GDP ratio is going up, because growth is shrinking.
Could you compare this word to curb? Because curb also means to reduce, but it's a different sense of reducing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like a curb is more something is done to reduce something, whereas crimping is like, for example, what was the example here? Drought is crimping supplies. They didn't produce a drought to purposely curb supplies. So I think that would be the difference, where curb is there's some intentional action taken.
I feel like with crimp, I just picture compressing something, pressing it down.
I think twisting it and folding it kind of like, don't people their hair crimped and then it's like a type of perm?
Right. 그러네요. 자, crimp라는 게 억제하다의 뜻이 있는데요. 우리가 이전에 봤었던 curve도 사실 사전적인 의미는 억제하다가 들어있습니다. 그러나 이 두 단어는 좀 다르죠. curve라는 건 아까 말한 것처럼 뭐 내가 요즘에 설탕을 좀 줄이려고 해, 아니면은 뭐 이런 음식 좀 억제하려고 해 하는 그런 느낌이라면은 crimp라는 것은 무엇이 성장하는 것을 이게 누르는 그런 느낌이라고 볼 수 있겠습니다. 조금 다른 느낌이에요.
So one more thing for crimp that might help is think about weather. There's a lot of the times you'll make plans. I do that all the time. Okay, let's go have a picnic at the Hangang, for example, and then it's raining, and that can really put a crimp on your plans.
계획에 차질이 생기는.
So you can say put a crimp in something or put a
Right.
crimp on something.
I see. And in the headline it says the production oil producing countries have seen a crimp in their supplies. Or I guess the weather has
Reduction.
crimped supplies.
Yeah.
Yes. 아, 그래요. 여기서 이제 crimp supplies라는 것은 그만큼 공급량이 줄어들었다라는 느낌으로 볼 수 있을 것 같고요. 그 다음에 resort to something.
That is when you have to do something. You make a decision to do something because you think you have no other choice. And you may not really want to do that, or you may know it's wrong. However, you have no other choice. You have to do it. You think you have to do it.
A resorts to B. A가 정말 다른 대안이 없기 때문에 어쩔 수 없이 B를 하다. 이런 느낌이 좀 있는데요. Give us an example sentence.
After losing the argument, he resorted to personal insults. I think I think everyone's dealt with people like that. You're having an argument or a debate or a discussion, and when one person, some people are like that, when they know they've lost, they just start insulting the other person personally. They resort to that. Like, and you can say to someone, okay, now I can see you're just resorting to personal insults. You've obviously lost this argument if you have to resort to that.
결국은 이렇게 하게 되다. 이렇게 해석을 하는 게 좋겠네요. 여기서 지금 예문을 들어주신 것은 이게 말다툼이라든지 이런 언쟁이 있었는데 그 아규먼트에서 지고 나니까 personal insult, 개인적인 험담 이런 거를 하기 시작했다. 이 좋은 상황은 아니지만 어쨌든 이럴 수는 있겠죠. 그래서 resort to something, 다른 이제 대안은 다 없는 것으로 보여져서 그렇게까지 하더라. 이런 느낌입니다. Alright, here it is one more time. Olive oil prices have spiked to fresh records as severe droughts in major producing countries continue to crimp supplies, driving desperate people to resort to stealing it.
Elon Musk's brain implant startup Neuralink has reportedly received approval from an independent review board to begin recruiting patients for its first human trial.
일론 머스크 테슬라 최고 경영자의 뇌신경 과학 스타트업 뉴럴링크가 인간의 뇌에 컴퓨터 칩을 이식하기 위한 첫 임상시험 참가자 모집에 대해 심사위원회의 승인을 받아낸 것으로 알려졌습니다. Ooh, something new here.
Very new, very new. So their Neuralink is now seeking patients who have paralysis, and they want to test this experimental device in a 6-year study. So this is going to take a long time. The study's initial goal is to use these implants to allow these people, paralyzed people, to control external devices such as computer cursors or keyboards. So that could be incredible, right? It's amazing if this can actually happen. So the study is going to evaluate the safety and the functionality of this technology.
So your
and
brain would be linked to a computer.
Yeah, and be able to control a computer screen with your brain. You know, people who have spinal cord injuries, paralysis, paraplegic, quadriplegics.
They'd just be able to think it.
They'd be able to think it and move it around. So it's
amazing.
Yeah, this could be revolutionary for a lot of people.
It could. 네. 자, 정말로 이렇게 뇌에서 생각하는 것만으로도 이제 컴퓨터로 옮겨지는 그러니까 정말 의사 표현을 하기 힘드신 분들이라든지 그런 분들에게 정말 어떤 혁신적인 그런 development가 될 수 있을 것 같은데요. 한번 표현 보겠습니다. Brain implant startup.
That's right. So when you see startup, you know that it's a new company, brand new company. Whatever goes in front of it, that's the business they're in.
Yeah.
So we know here that this startup, they're in the brain implant business.
It's not easy to pronounce.
No, it's not. No, but they're creating, producing, making this technology.
네. 뇌 임플란트, 그러니까 뇌신경 과학 스타트업이 되겠네요.
A lot of times you hear tech startup. That is kind of the one you're going to hear the most. In Silicon Valley, there are so many tech startups.
Yeah, there was that story earlier on about the startup making these new bicycle tires.
Oh, sure.
That's
yeah, exactly.
another startup.
Yeah, exactly.
What's a human trial?
When they're testing a new drug or a new technology on people, they're also called clinical trials.
인체 실험, 시험이 되겠죠. Human trial. Give us an example sentence with this.
Human trial. The company is conducting a human trial for its new drug. Whereas, they'd probably start with animal trials and then move on to human trials.
네, 신약 개발을 위해서 이제 인체 실험 시험을 진행하고 있다. 이런 예문이 있었습니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Elon Musk's brain implant startup Neuralink has reportedly received approval from an independent review board to begin recruiting patients for its first human trial.